9 spine-chilling motel encounters, terrifying tales revealed to keep you awake at night. Lisa pulled into the dimly lit parking lot of the decrepit motel, her heart pounding like a war drum. This wasn't just a stopover, it felt like stepping into a horror movie straight out of her nightmares. Weathered signs flickered above her like dying stars, and the scent of dampness mixed with mildew assaulted her senses as she exited the car. In the back seat, her teenage son Jake, weary from a long drive, slumped deeper into sleep, oblivious to the looming presence of dread. Despite the exhaustion clinging to her like a second skin, anxiety tightened its grip around her throat. She shuffled to the lobby, her footsteps echoing on the cracked pavement, always looking over her shoulder, as if the shadows were creeping closer. The young clerk eyed her with disinterest, sliding the room key across the counter while the lingering stench of decay filled her lungs. As she took the key, unease prickled at the back of her mind, whispering that something was very wrong. In their room, the air hung heavy with an unshakable tension. As they settled in, whispers curled through the hallway like cold fingers. Shadows danced just outside their door, teasing her peripheral vision. Lisa shook her head. Will I ever learn to relax? A chill swept through her as she recalled those chilling words of a gaunt man she'd crossed in the hallway. You should really keep an eye on that boy. He disappeared too suddenly, leaving behind a weight of foreboding. As Lisa tried to brush the oppressive feeling away, a scrap of paper slid under the door. Startled, she snatched it up with trembling hands. Beware the darkness, it's hungry, it read, propelling her into a storm of panic. Was this a joke? Paranoia surged through her veins. The few guests she saw wore wary expressions, their eyes darting like frightened animals. The unease gnawed at her, and as the night deepened, it felt like a trap closing around them. Before she could calm herself, she awoke to hollowness in the room, the emptiness that screamed Jake was missing. Panic surged like ice water in her veins. The silence was deafening, drowning out her desperate whispers. Every room she passed felt like a shuttered tomb. The guest's warning rattled in her mind, and the whispers grew louder, now sounding almost like a chant, a call to her son. Amid frantic searching, pieces of the motel's history came to life, disturbing tales of families that vanished without a trace filled her thoughts. Tension felt tangible, thick as fog, as she ventured deeper into the shadows. She felt eyes on her, the corners of the hall thrummed with secrets too dark to be spoken. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Terror mounted as echoes of laughter clawed at her sanity. It was the sound of children mixed with soft sobs. Dread flooded her chest as she realized she was not merely looking for her son, she was traversing a realm spun with dark memories. Each room she opened revealed remnants of lives, interrupted photos on the walls, a child's toy left behind, intangible ghosts haunting her. Just as she lost herself in despair, the lights flickered erratically, plunging her into an ominous twilight. Shadows shifted, rising like smoke to engulf her in deafening silence. The whispers crescendoed, no longer distant but closer, curling around her heart. In that panic-stricken moment, she knew you don't check into this motel, it checks in on you. Where was Jake? Time slipped away, and the ominous history of the place whispered the truth: lost souls. Broken dreams. As fear tightened around her, she braced herself for an encounter more horrifying than anything she had ever imagined. The darkness bore down like a weight on her chest, choking, suffocating. Each breath felt like a desperate gasp in a far too quiet room that seemed to swallow sound whole. Lisa's heart raced as she stumbled back against a wall, the chill of the peeling paint biting into her skin. She could hear it now, the soft, rhythmic padding of footsteps echoing through the corridor, just out of sight. Jake! She called, her voice a trembling whisper. The name hung in the air, tainted by the haunting darkness surrounding her. The only response was the sinister echo of a laughter she couldn't place, a laugh laced with unfathomable sadness. Each peal intertwined with the memories of families lost, stories that unraveled in the very corridors she traversed. Mustering her courage, she crept toward the sound, leaning closer to the door of the next room. With trembling hands, she pushed it open, half expecting to find her son on the other side. Instead, the room lay empty, save for a thick layer of dust that spiraled in the faint light filtering through the grimy window. "Come on, Jake, please." Panic clawed at her throat. Her mind raced back to what she'd seen, those disturbing whispers, the figures in the shadows. She blinked, tearing her gaze away from the empty space before her. She had to find him. Moving quickly, she made her way toward the end of the hall, each step reverberating with dread, as if the whole place resented her presence. She hesitated at a doorway marked only by a chipped number 4. The door stood slightly ajar, an invitation or perhaps a trap. "Jake?" She called again, pushing the door open. A gust of stale air swept past her, and the dim light flickered ominously. Inside, the walls were covered in faded wallpaper depicting quaint scenes of family life, but there was something off about them. Faces were scratched out, their expressions twisted into grotesque smiles. Her heart raced as she stepped inside, scanning the room. And then she froze. A small figure hunched in the corner, frail and silent. "Jake?" she whispered, rushing across the room, but as she reached him, he slowly turned. It wasn't Jake. It was a boy, no older than 7, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb all light. "He's coming for you," the boy whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Panic lit a fire inside her, clawing up her throat. "You should have left when you had the chance." "Where's my son?" Lisa's voice trembled. The boy only pointed at the shadowy corner of the room where darkness coiled like a living thing. Something moved in that murky space, a dark form that twisted and stretched, fangs glimmering in the faint light. It slithered closer, emitting a breath that smelled of rot and despair. Lisa felt her back hit the wall. "Run," the boy urged, but it was too late. A sensation of cold swept through the air, wrapping around Lisa like icy fingers. The shadows thickened, resonating with hunger, with desire her flesh. Just as she felt herself pulled into the darkness, a fierce scream filled the air. It was Jake. Lisa tore herself away and bolted back into the hallway, the haunting whispers crescendoing into a terrible cacophony. She sprinted toward the source of the sound, raw desperation propelling her forward. "Jake!" she screamed. The darkness behind her pulsed with rage, and she could feel its presence creeping closer. She took a deep breath and ran faster, clinging to hope even as fear threatened to swallow her whole. Would she find him in time? Was it already too late? She pushed through the door at the end of the hallway, gasping for breath, eyes darting around the room enveloped in an oppressive gloom. But she wasn't alone. Flickering to life, the overhead lights illuminated figures standing in circles, shadows coiling and intertwining among them. And in the center, a familiar face, a boy's face shrouded in a veil of darkness. "Help me, Mom!" Jake's voice seeped into the stillness like poison. Lisa stood paralyzed, terror wrapped around her like barbed wire. "Please," he begged, just as the figures turned towards her, eyes glinting with malice. In a world where the shadows fed on fear, the truth loomed dangerously close. Could she save her son, or would they both be consumed? A chill crept through her bones as the ground trembled, and the whispers returned, echoing through the air, demanding, pleading, a thunderous hunger awakening once more. What would they find together in the depths of this twisted nightmare? The room's oppressive gloom enveloped Lisa like a vice. The flickering lights cast unforgiving shadows, revealing more pairs of eyes that now turned towards her. Each one glinted with unearthly hunger, an insatiable thirst for something far worse than mere flesh. "Jake!" she cried, but her voice cracked, swallowed by the malevolent atmosphere that thickened around her. "Mom!" Jake's echoing plea seemed distant, as if he were trapped in a glass box, sound muffled and distorted. He was there, yet so far away. The figures moved closer, their shadows writhing like snakes in the dim light. She could barely discern their features, but the vacant expressions etched on their faces spoke of despair. They were not just lost souls, they were prisoners in this nightmarish realm. With a shudder, she realized their expressions mirrored her own fear. "Help him," one of the figures hissed, but the words dripped with a malevolence that made her stomach twist. "You must join us." As if tethered to the ground by chains of dread, Lisa felt her feet moving back, instinctively trying to escape. The boy's haunting eyes beckoned her. "Don't let them take you," he whispered, the urgency in his voice a razor edge against her skin. Lisa turned her head abruptly, searching for Jake, her heart pounding louder than the relentless whispers that enveloped her. She fought the sensation of panic threatening to engulf her as the realization hit: these shadows were aware. They were alive. They were watching, waiting. "Get away from him!" She screamed, her voice rising above the chaos, shaking with rage and fear. As if her fury broke an unseen barrier, the shadows recoiled for a split second. "Mom!" Jake's cry pierced through, a lifeline she desperately clasped at. In that brief moment, clarity struck her like lightning. The shadows thrived on fear, they craved despair. Perhaps if she could harness her love, her determination summoning every ounce of bravery, she shouted, "I will not let you take him. You will not have my son." The figures shrieked, an inhuman chorus echoing in the closed space, their cries rippling through the air as if a storm had racked the confines of the room. The lights flickered violently, casting the space into flashes of blinding white and deep darkness, each burst revealing the twisted visages of the shadows writhe and recoil. "Fight with us, Lisa," they murmured, voices melding into one dreadful chant. "Join us in eternity, no!" She yelled, fists clenching. With every ounce of strength, she focused on Jake. "I'm coming." She lunged towards her son, a bridge of determination forming from her heart to his. As she moved, the shadows lunged forward, but this time, instead of fear, she felt a rush of warmth. Her love for Jake, the fierce, unyielding bond that connected them, grew into a bright flame. The shadows shied away, hissing like disturbed beasts. Light radiated from her, golden glimmers chased the darkness back. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, teetering on the brink of hope and despair. "Stay away!" She screamed again, pushing through the crowd of dark figures, reaching out for her son. They seemed to falter, unable to withstand the sheer force of her will. Finally, she reached Jake, his expression twisted in a mix of fear and longing. She wrapped her arms around him, feeling the warmth of his small body against her chest. But before they could escape, something slammed heavily on the door behind them. A deafening crash reverberated throughout the room, shaking the walls and causing dust to rain down from the ceiling. Then, silence. The moment froze, thick with uncertainty, before the door swung open, revealing a towering silhouette framed against the doorway. An inhuman grin stretched wide across its shadowy face, eyes glinting with a wicked light. "Did you think it would be that easy?" It growled, voice deep and sonorous, the embodiment of nightmares. Fear seeped back into Lisa's veins. She glanced down at Jake, who clung to her leg, trembling. "Run, Mom," he urged, his voice small, the terror of realizing they were not yet free washing over him. But where could they run? The darkness had a life of its own, breathing, living, and pulsing in the room. What were they going to face now that hope had turned once more into despair? The shadows stirred, eagerly awaiting their next move. Lisa took a shuddering breath, grasping Jake tighter. They had one chance left. Would they confront the entity that threatened to pull them into eternal darkness, or would they both succumb to the fear that had them trapped? The choice loomed like a dark cloud over their heads, suffocating and relentless. What would she decide when faced with the ultimate truth? The creature stepped forward, its form twisting unnaturally, the air thickening with its putrid scent. Lisa's heart raced as it loomed over them, a figure stitched together from nightmares, grotesque and altogether wrong. She shivered, the chill of its presence snapping her focus. "Please," she stammered, her voice barely audible above the pounding of her heart. "Just let us go." It laughed, low and rumbling, sending a tremor of dread through the room. "What makes you think you can escape?" Jake pressed his small frame against her legs, the heat of his body contrasting sharply with the surrounding cold. "Mom," he whispered, "do something." The silhouettes around them began to whisper again, their voices a cacophony of despair and temptation. "Join us. Join us." "No!" Lisa shouted, a surge of defiance rising within her. She couldn't let them drag her down. She wouldn't. Her love for Jake burned in her chest, a beacon against the shadows. With gritted teeth, she stepped forward, forcing her way through the encroaching darkness that surrounded them. The entity seemed to shift, its smile fading slightly. For a brief moment, it looked uncertain, as if caught off guard by her boldness. "Stay away from him," she shouted, a fierce protectiveness igniting her spirit. "You will not take my son." The shadows recoiled, their hissing intensifying, growing louder and more chaotic. Lisa felt emboldened. If they feared her love, then she would wield it like a weapon. She stood between Jake and the grinning horror, her own fear clawing at her insides but refusing to show its face. "You want me? You'll have to take us both." The creature snarled, its eyes narrowing. "You offer yourself so easily?" It seemed intrigued, as if her willingness to sacrifice herself amused it. In that frozen moment, Lisa recalled the warmth of Jake's embrace, the glee in his laughter, and the way his eyes sparkled with hope. "I'll do anything for him," she murmured. "More than anything, I'll fight." With that thought pulsating in her heart, she took another step forward, her hands clenched into fists. The shadows flared in agitation, swirling around her like a storm. As they did, she felt an energy shift, a hum of connection coursing through her body. "Jake!" she called, locking eyes with him. "Hold on to me, baby. No matter what." He nodded, face resolute, though fear still flickered in his eyes. Lisa focused on the light within her, the love, the hope, the fierce bond that would not bend or break. She reached out her hand towards the dark being, finger trembling but determined. "You don't scare me. You don't own me, and you won't touch him." In response, the creature surged forward, shadowy tendrils reaching out, grasping for her soul. The energy surged, and with it, a blinding light erupted from Lisa, illuminating the room, fracturing the oppressive darkness. "Enough!" she roared, and it was as if the very foundation of the nightmare trembled in response. The shadows writhed violently, their screeching cries filling the air as they retreated from the light. But even as the darkness fell back, Lisa could feel the boundaries between worlds shaking. The ground beneath her feet quaked, and for a moment, she feared they might fall into an endless abyss. In that moment, a thought gripped her: what if the darkness was simply lying in wait, planning its next move? Suddenly, the creature lunged, breaking through the brief barrier of light. "You can't break what's already broken," it roared, unleashing a furious gale of darkness. Lisa fought to hold on to Jake, pulling him close to her, determined not to lose the one thing that kept her grounded. But the shadows streamed toward them with newfound fury, eager to consume and overwhelm. "Hold on!" she shouted, as she could feel herself being tugged backward, away from the light. Time stretched, and so did the silence, the calm before another inevitable storm. What would happen when the light dimmed? With shadows swirling and darkness closing in, hope fought against despair in a deadly dance. Would they find a way to escape this twisted realm, or had they just stepped closer to their doom? As the last remnants of light flickered, a decision burned in Lisa's mind, one that threatened to redefine everything she knew about survival. Would love be enough? And as the figures surged forward, she braced herself for the terrifying answer. The darkness roared with insatiable hunger, each shadow a claw scraping at the edges of Lisa's sanity. The air crackled with a sinister energy, and she felt the creeping cold wrap around her throat like a noose. No! She screamed, but the word felt inadequate against the sheer weight of despair pressing down on her. The shadows pulsed, dark tendrils lashing out, searching, probing. "Mom!" Jake cried, gripping her leg tighter. His small body was a lifeline amidst the chaos, grounding her as the world spun. But then she noticed the shadows were shifting, forming patterns, faces emerging in the undulating forms. She recognized the face of a neighbor, someone who used to wave at her from across the street. But something was off. Its eyes were hollow, mouth twisted in a silent scream. "No!" Lisa shouted, forcing herself to steer her gaze away. "You're not real." She had to focus. They needed to fight. The creature laughed again, a sound hollow and echoing as if it came from the very bowels of despair. "Are you so sure?" It taunted, its voice creeping into her ears like a snake. "There are far worse fates than joining me." The shadows lunged again, and this time they didn't stop. Tendrils wrapped around her wrists, squeezing with bone-crushing pressure, dragging her toward the waiting void. "Jake!" She screamed, desperation pulling her words tight. "Run! Get away!" But he stood there, eyes wide, frozen by the sight of the creature and the terror encasing them. "I can't leave you." In that moment, something shifted within Lisa. Anger surged through her. She wouldn't let them have her son. The fury ignited a fire in her soul, and with it, the flickers of light began to blaze anew. "Jake," she murmured, her voice strong, "think of the park, your friends, think of the sunshine." The shadows recoiled slightly, flinching as if her words had stung. It was enough of a distraction for her to muster the strength to yank her arms free. She lowered her body, crouching low to meet Jake's gaze. "Listen to me. We need to fight together. We can't let them win." His small face crinkled in thought. "But how? Remember when we played pretend? You were always a hero. Be my hero now." Something clicked within him, a spark of belief igniting in the abyss of fear. He nodded, grit forming in his small jaw. Lisa reached out to him, holding his tiny hand as tightly as she could. Together, they made their stand. Her heart hammered wildly, but the love rising inside her fortified her resolve. "We're not afraid of you," Lisa yelled, pulling Jake close. "You may have our fears, but you will never have our love." The creature snarled, a whirlwind of hatred swirling around its grotesque form. "Love?" It spat back, venom seeping from each syllable. "Love will not save you here. You're in my domain now, and here despair reigns eternal." With a deafening roar, the shadows surged back, a tidal wave of darkness crashing toward them. But Lisa wouldn't let go of neither Jake nor the flickering light of hope. She focused, forcing the remnants of her love outward, letting it burst from her in a radiant wave. "Join us!" Jake yelled, his voice bright and unyielding. "Together!" The wave of light erupted, colliding with the shadows. Lisa felt the vibrations ripple through her, a shockwave that splintered the darkness, fracturing the nightmare. Still, the creature fought back violently, tendrils like knives ripping through the radiance. "You are fools!" It bellowed, rage emanating from its voice. "You cannot escape." The room exploded in chaos as the shadows and light clashed. Lisa shielded Jake, but even as they fought back, she felt the ground tremble beneath them. They were at the center of a storm. But this was just the beginning. Would they break through the nightmarish cycle? Every heartbeat echoed with uncertainty. Just then, a blinding light erupted from above, a beacon piercing through the darkness. Shadows shrieked, recoiling in pain. The ceiling cracked and splintered, and from above, glimmers of something not quite of this world began to descend. What were they waking up to? Would it be salvation or doom? The blinding light washed over them like liquid fire, and Lisa instinctively shielded Jake with her body. She felt the warmth seep through her skin, invigorating her spirit even as the darkness resisted, writhing like a beast in agony. The shadows screamed, a cacophony of despair and fury, each wail sharp enough to pierce through the very fabric of reality. "What is happening?" Jake shouted, panic lacing his voice. "I don't know. Just hold on tight," Lisa replied, squeezing his hand. They were trapped in a void of chaos and light, a surreal dance of life and death, joy and sorrow. Suddenly, figures began to emerge from the luminous descent above. Ethereal shapes unfurled, shimmering like reflections on water, and with them came an unearthly whispering, threading through the tumult. Faces more familiar, softer appeared in the light, inviting and warm. "Mom! Look!" Jake gasped, pointing as more forms coalesced. Lisa squinted, heart pounding. There, among them, she recognized her grandmother, the woman who had cradled her as a child, her gentle smile unwavering even in the face of darkness. "It's them!" Lisa shouted, but doubt flickered in her mind. "Are they here to help?" The shadows recoiled, rage boiling in their confrontation with the light. "Fools!" the creature snarled. "They cannot save you. You must face the darkness alone." But the glimmering beings grew stronger, foiling the creature's frantic efforts to snatch them back into despair. "We are here," the voices echoed, echoing through Lisa's core, "we are love. We are memories." As the warmth enveloped her, memories surged forth, time spent at summer picnics, the sound of laughter, the smell of freshly baked cookies from her childhood. It began to drown out the icy grasp of despair. Lisa felt her heart race not from fear but from a newfound purpose. This is what she had to protect. "Jake, these are our loved ones," she yelled over the noise. "They're fighting for us. We can do this. We can push it away." Jake's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and hope igniting within him. "But how?" "Together, remember?" she urged, eyes blazing with determination. She felt the strength of every shared moment, every joy flooding her. "We take that light, we push back." With all her might, she closed her eyes and summoned every fragment of their shared love, every laugh, every hug, every whispered secret. Together, holding on to that strength, she shouted, "You do not own us. We are stronger than you." Their light surged forward, a tidal wave of warmth. With one pulse, it ripped through the shadows, illuminating the faces of friends and family, reminding the darkness of the power love held. The creature bellowed, a sound of pure agony and defeat. "No! You cannot!" Just as they felt the surge push against the darkness, a piercing scream splintered through the chaos. Lisa and Jake jolted, their bond shattering the darkness around them. But in that moment of sheer illumination, something began to fray. The shadowy realm trembled, reality itself seemed to unravel. Suddenly, the air turned thick with tension. The light flickered, shadows lunged in a last desperate act. The room shuddered violently, walls creaking as if the very structure was collapsing. "Mom! We have to go." Jake's voice was urgent, but even as he pulled at Lisa, she felt a crisp wave of doubt wash over her. Would they break through, or would they be crushed beneath the weight of despair once more? Before she could respond, the shadow creature let out a final, deafening roar, and the ground beneath them cracked, a gaping maw revealing an endless pit of darkness. "Mom!" Jake shouted in terror, eyes wide as they teetered on the edge. The fissure glowed with an unsettling light, drawing them in. Lisa's heart raced, panic bubbling in her throat. Against all reason, she reached out toward the luminous forms of her family. "Stay with me!" she screamed, just as they were pulled toward the abyss. What awaited them? Would love triumph over despair, or had they fully plunged into darkness forever? The ground rumbled beneath them as they dangled at the precipice, the abyss beckoning like a gaping maw hungry for anything to consume. Jake's face twisted with terror, his small hands gripped Lisa's like a vice. She could feel his heart pounding against her chest, frantic and wild. "Mom! What do we do?" he cried, panic oozing from his voice. "Hold on to the light," she roared, trying to drown out the pull of the shadows swirling around them. The radiant silhouettes of her loved ones flickered, their faces now grim with intensity, urging them to join them, but the darkness distorted their features, tearing at her resolve. "Help us!" Lisa screamed to the figures above, her voice strained, cracking under the weight of despair. But a grim haze wrapped around them, threatening to snuff out everything they clung to. "Fight it!" she shouted, squeezing Jake's hand tighter, knowing that the warmth of love was their last lifeline. She felt Jake nodding, his tiny fingers trembling but determined. Together, they harnessed the glowing memories, rooting themselves to the love that surged through them. "Push!" she shouted, her body trembling as she focused all her energy into a single thought: they would not be claimed by the darkness. They would not let the shadows erase them. Suddenly, a deafening crack split the air. The fissure yawned wider, and time itself seemed to stretch, elongating the seconds into suffocating eternity. The dark pit beneath them pulsed, a heartbeat of shadows ready to claim their own. "Mom, we can't. It's too strong." Jake screamed, his eyes wide and glistening with unshed tears. "It's okay, baby. Remember the good times. Remember Grandma's stories, Dad's laugh. Hold on to those." Summoning every ounce of strength, Lisa's voice cut through the chaos. "You do not have power over us. We are loved. We are not alone." In that instant, light surged from their clasped hands. Yet the shadows went on their relentless attack, tendrils reaching for them, clawing and grasping. Lisa felt cold fingers graze her back. "No!" she gasped, twisting. It was as if the darkness had developed a mind of its own, seeking out their fear, using it as a weapon. The glowing figures flickered just above them, their comforting warmth wavering with the encroaching despair. A cacophony of wails erupted from the shadows, dueling with the joyous echoes of laughter anchored in Lisa's heart. She could feel the darkness trying to weave itself into her mind, planting seeds of doubt. What if they weren't strong enough? What if love wasn't enough? But just then, the faces of her family grew clearer, brighter. Her grandmother smiled through the veil of shadows, her own voice breaking through the noise. "You are never alone, Lisa. Together, always together. Together." Lisa echoed, feeling a surge of warmth burst through her. The abyss below simmered, the cries of the darkness dimming as she and Jake shouted their shared memories. "Love is our shield," they proclaimed, pulling back against the shadows with deft precision. The demon wrenched in agony, seething as the light formed into a barrier around them. For a fleeting moment, it seemed they might just break free, but then the ground shook violently again. A rumbling core of blackness wyverned through the fissure, as though a great machine of sorrow was awakening. The shadows shrieked, their cries piercing through like thunder. "We're losing it, Mom. It's too much," Jake yelled. In that moment, fear clawed at her gut, but something else surged through Lisa, fiercer than before: determination. She leaned closer to Jake, shouting against the gather of darkness, "We can do this. We won't let them win." Just as she thought to envelop Jake in love, the very ground beneath them cracked again, an anguished roil. The shadows coiled around her waist, drawing her in, tendrils of despair silencing the light that had fought so hard to protect them. And in a heartbeat, her grip slipped as the bond began to fray, sucked toward the vast abyss, the dark creature waiting eagerly at the edge. "Mom!" Jake screamed, high-pitched and desperate. Suddenly, time warped once more, and in that split vision of infinite potential, a dark shape loomed, the creature's form morphing and shifting, threatening to swallow them whole. "What will we choose?" it hissed, voice twisted and echoing, relentless. Just as darkness threatened to consume them, a blinding flash illuminated the depths of the fissure, revealing a choice hovering in the darkness. Would they embrace love or succumb to despair? Lisa's heart thundered in her chest, chilling clarity washing over her. The shadows clawed at her, the truth echoing in her mind. They could choose. And in that moment of decision, the forces of darkness howled, fissures of light appearing momentarily as the abyss writhed. What path would they take, and what lay at the end of it? The shadows clawed at Lisa, frigid terror gripping her chest, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Her heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing the dampened cries of Jake. With every second, the scale of darkness pressed closer, suffocating hope with its endless reach. "Mom," Jake whimpered, and the word shattered Lisa's resolve like glass. The fissure below twisted violently, a vortex of despair beckoning them down. Lisa's grip on Jake tightened, desperation lacing her voice. "We will not go into the darkness." But the abyss roared, its hungry mouth widening. The shadows fought back with primal ferocity, shooting cold ribbons into the barrier that surrounded them, the warmth dimming with each agonizing breath. "Focus, Jake," she urged. "Think of Grandma. Think of when we baked cookies." The flicker of memory ignited something within him. "And the time we went to the park?" Jake shouted, strength hidden beneath layers of fear. "I remember." With every memory, tendrils of light sparkled around them, illuminating those fleeting moments. But it wasn't enough. Shadows, thick and viscous, wrapped around their limbs, pulling them closer to the edge. "Don't let go," Lisa cried. She could feel the cold embrace creep around her wrists, like the bite of ice water. The demon's power threatened to unmoor them, unearthing simmering doubt as it loomed closer, voice oozing malice. "You think your love can save you? You're weak. You are nothing." Its words slithered into her heart, festering, sending waves of panic crashing over her. What if the demon was right? What if they were not enough? "Mom! Don't listen," Jake pleaded, his voice small yet powerful against the rising tide of shadows. She met his gaze, fierce defiance reflected there, a small warrior in a world of despair. "We choose love," Lisa screamed into the abyss, confronting the swirling darkness. With determination, she held tighter to Jake. "Together." As the words spilled from her lips, light flared anew, bursting like a supernova, driving back the tendrils of despair. She felt a tide of warmth flood through her, feeding off her resolve. This light pushed the darkness, momentarily halting its advance. But the shadows were relentless, sharpening their attack with shrieks of fury. The fissure roared again, consumed with a darkness that seemed alive, a pulsing entity fueled by every fear it found. "Mom, help!" Jake's cries pierced through like a knife. Fear clawed at the edges of her mind, but his sparkling eyes reminded her of their shared strength. "Think," Lisa commanded, her voice rising above the chaos. "Remember your favorite ice cream. Remember Dad dancing." With every morsel of joy they recalled, light sparked brighter and brighter, battling the encroaching darkness. But the abyss thrashed, slashing with jagged shadows that sliced through their barrier. "Jake!" Lisa gasped as a particular dark wave snuck through their shield, wrapping around her foot. It felt real, alive, a biting cold that drilled into her flesh, seeking fear, cracking her resolve. "No!" she cried, pushing against the strong pull. "Together. We are together. I believe in you, Mom," Jake shouted, his voice fierce, unyielding. In an instant, Lisa felt a new bond, clear and golden, a light forged from their love, resilient against the creeping dread. She closed her eyes, envisioning it, breathing it in. The shadows' whispers grew less audible, suffocated by the impending light of their love. But then, from the very edge of the abyss, came an ear-piercing scream, a chaotic clamor that churned with madness. A shadowy claw burst forth, swiping inches from Lisa, leaving a freezing chill that sank into her bones. "You'll never escape!" The darkness shrieked, a cacophony of voices rising from within. Panic exploded in her chest. Could they truly prevail against such enormous despair? Even with Jake by her side, the fight felt monumental, an endless tide threatening to consume them both. Before they could gather their strength, a rift opened in the darkness, revealing silhouettes of lost souls reaching out, crying for help, their faces twisted in eternal grief. Each cry pierced Lisa's heart. "Mom!" Jake choked, voice trembling as the darkness laughed, echoing their very worst fears back at them. In that sickening moment, Lisa realized the truth: a choice lay within the shadows. A chance to take on their pain, their darkness. But was it a price too great to pay? Would hope die, or would it carry them to the light? As desperation clawed at her mind, the shadows gasped, shifting with anticipation. "Make your choice," they echoed, an invitation that rattled through both Lisa and Jake. What awaited them beyond? Would they step forward into the light or allow the fear to pull them into the void? In the eye of the storm, the decision hung perilously in the air, ready to shift the world around them. The darkness seemed to flicker and pulse, a living entity hanging on Lisa's every breath. She felt Jake tremble beside her, and her heart twisted with the weight of their shared fear. The rift before them widened, almost inviting, taunting them with the suffering of lost souls. Would they confront their own agony or let it wade deeper into despair? "Mom, what do we do?" Jake whispered, eyes wide, full of innocent dread. He was just a child, caught in a battle he couldn't understand. The weight of her uncertainty pressed down on her like a heavy shroud. "Together," Lisa whispered, the word tasting both sweet and bitter on her tongue. She turned to the shadows, standing firm. "We choose love." For a moment, the shadows recoiled, as if stung by her declaration. Their cold grip lessened just enough to allow her a breath, a flicker of hope amidst the heart-stopping terror. Maybe, just maybe, they could withstand this horror together. But the darker forces watched, swirling with wicked delight. "Love? Such feeble nonsense." A voice hissed, sharp and dissonant like nails on glass. The sound crawled into her mind, stirring doubt and fear. "You'll fail," just like the others. Images of the lost souls filed through her mind, each face twisted in pain. Each looked eerily familiar, and Lisa's stomach knotted. What if she too would become one of them? The shadows hissed as if reading her thoughts, sensing the way hope wavered. "We're not like them," Lisa shouted, clenching her teeth against rising panic. "We can break this cycle." A powerful wind surged as she said it, drawing strength from her desperation. The memories she and Jake held began to shimmer like stars, filling the air with a warmth that fought against the cold terror. And then she saw it, a glimmer of something in the darkness, something brighter than the abyss. A figure, a glowing silhouette, smiled back at them. "Fight!" It beckoned, its voice a soothing balm to her panic, echoing her heart's wish. But before she could process, cold fingers gripped her ankle, pulling toward the void. Lisa gasped, jerking her leg back, but the grip tightened like a vice. "Mom!" Jake screamed, terror painting his face as he reached for her. "I want to let go," Lisa shouted, pulling him closer. The light seemed to pulse with her resolve, rippling around them. But the shadows shrieked in anger, drowning out her thoughts, feeding off her fear. Time twisted, seconds felt like hours, and the entity closing in whispered of ultimate despair. "Join us, embrace your fate," it coaxed, the temptation heavy like smog. "No!" Lisa yelled, shaking her head violently. "We will not surrender." With renewed fury, she focused on Jake, their bond igniting a blaze of light. He was the heart of everything. "Think of all our dreams, Jake. Our best days. The warmth of home. And like a beacon, their memories surged forth. The laughter, the warmth, the invisible ties that bound them, sparks leaping from heart to heart. The darkness writhed in retaliation, shrieks cut through the air. But the light refused to yield. With every joyful memory they summoned, the shadows recoiled, flickering with disdain. Yet, as the warmth spread, Lisa felt her strength waver. The claws of darkness clawed deeper into her resolve, each word gnawing away at her guard. Mom! The souls! They need help! Jake's voice trembled, pulling her back to the center. She inhaled, centering herself, knowing that each choice mattered. But would helping the lost souls swallow them whole too? What if we end up trapped? The shadows seemed to relish her uncertainty, heightening the tension, urging her toward the rift. Help them or succumb. The voices rose tumultuously, echoing around them, tyranny of sorrow, demonic whispers, anarchy of loss. Could they really turn their backs on those who needed saving? The smell of fear was thick, wrapping its tendrils around her throat. Yet, the flickering warmth of Jake's smile, now shimmering, stirred the insatiable need to fight. Together, Mom! Jake cried out, the truth crystallizing before her. So there it was. The choice hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Just as she opened her mouth to decide, the world tipped, plunging them closer into the maw of darkness. Time slowed, breaths hitched, and uncertainty clawed deeper than before. Fingers of despair unfurled, ready to drag them into an eternal night. Would they hold on to love? Or let the cries of the lost drown them in despair? It was now or never, and as the abyss roared, a single question circled through her mind, echoing in the void: what if love isn't enough? Lisa stood at the edge of the abyss, panic coursing through her veins like fire. Shadows writhed like serpents beneath her, their hungry laughter washing over her in waves. Jake clung to her side, his eyes wide, reflecting nothing but fear and uncertainty. Mom! Do something! His voice trembled, a small, desperate plea that cut through the suffocating air. Together! She shouted, grounding herself in the bond that shimmered between them. They had fought too long to let despair win. We've faced the darkness, we can do this. A flicker of hope cracked the foundation of her terror. Thoughts of their laughter, the soft touch of sun on skin, all the moments that reminded them of love surged to the forefront of her mind. Remember the park? The ice cream? Yes. Jake replied, his fists balled up with resolve. And Dad dancing. His voice grew stronger, bolstered by memories and the heat of their love. The shadows seemed to writhe, recoiling from the warmth that burst forth from their shared memories. Lisa stepped forward, her heart thundering with newfound courage. We choose love. As soon as the words left her lips, a beam of light erupted from within them, a radiant force that shattered the darkness like glass. The shadows screeched, angry and twisted, trying to claw back towards them. But Lisa felt the wall of warmth around her and Jake building higher, swallowing the despair whole. Fight with us! Lisa cried out, a fierce spirit igniting within her. You won't take my son. Together! They yelled, intertwining their fingers tighter than ever, a tether that refused to break. They focused on the light, pouring their love, memories, and determination into a shield that pulsed against the darkness. Each thought intensified their resolve, joy expanded around them, causing the shadows to twist and writhe, shrieking in agony. But the darkness wasn't done. It lashed out, a swirling mass of cold dread. Frozen tendrils shot from the pit, curling around Lisa, trying to steal away her warmth. Jake's scream sliced through her, Mom! Don't let go! She shouted back, tearing herself free from the shadow's grip. She could feel the weight of despair clawing at her resolve. We will not be your prisoners. The determination igniting every fiber of her being brought new courage as they pressed on. As they faced the churning abyss, a figure emerged from the chaos, a ghostly silhouette, radiant with warmth and love. It was her grandmother, eyes sparkling knowingly. "Beloved ones are always with you." The figure called out through the darkness. "Mom, who is that?" Jake whispered, eyes wide in awe. "That," she gasped, hope swelling, "that is love. It never leaves us. Let it guide you." Her grandmother's figure glimmered, surrounded by other familiar silhouettes. "You have the power. Stand firm." With their resolve renewed, Lisa and Jake poured everything they had left into their memories. "We can save them," they shouted, their voices becoming one powerful entity. "We choose love." The darkness recoiled again, howling in rage. The fissure gaped wide, shadows writhing as if they were alive, struggling against the surging light. With one last pulse of strength, they focused on every bright moment. They clung to the love, the laughter, the light of each other. In a magnificent eruption, light enveloped them all, illuminating the shadows. The last echoes of whispers fell silent as the warmth radiated through the very fabric of the deep despair, healing the shadows, reclaiming the lost souls trapped within. "Let go!" Lisa exclaimed as they leaped towards the light, holding tightly to one another. The shadows splintered like glass beneath them, vanishing in clouds of vapor. They were no longer prisoners in the dark, they were emerging into the dawn of a new day. As they fell, warmth enveloped them, not the chill of despair, but a cocoon of vibrant energy. Lisa felt Jake's grip tighten as they shattered through the barrier between the nightmarish realm and the world of light. In a blinding flash, they landed softly in the cheerful morning light. "Free!" "She did it!" Jake shouted. Laughter bubbling from his lips as he spun in circles, arms wide, taking in the warmth of the sun. "Together, we did it," Lisa replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. The weight of the horror began to lift, leaving only joy and pure relief. They had faced the horrors of the motel together, and they had won. Lisa knelt down, pulling Jake into a fierce hug, holding him close as he giggled with glee. "You're my hero," she whispered. "And you're mine, Mom," Jake beamed, his smile brighter than she could have ever imagined. Together they stood, hand in hand, anchored in the joyful memories that had saved them. As they looked back at the motel fading into the distance, Lisa took a deep breath, clarity flooding through her. They would carry those moments of joy with them forever. They would face life together, always. And in the glow of the morning sun, she knew that love was most definitely enough. And there it was, the darkness lay behind them, conquered by love, an enduring testament that would never be forgotten. Now that you've journeyed with us through this thrilling tale from horror to triumph, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this adventure with your friends. Smash that like button to support the channel and help us grow. We want to hear your thoughts in the comments. Flood the section with reactions and theories about the story. Share this video with at least 5 friends who love a good scare. Together, let us keep the magic of stories alive.